Hello guys, I'm Sketching Thoughts. Today we're going to talk about why you're not actually shy. You're hyper-aware of yourself, why your brain keeps monitoring every word, every movement, every expression, and how that silent self-awareness slowly disconnects you from real connection. You sit there replaying a conversation that ended 3 hours ago, not because anything bad happened, but because you noticed the way your voice sounded for 1 second, or the pause before you answered, or the expression on their face that probably meant nothing, but your brain keeps treating it like evidence. And slowly, without realizing it, you start shrinking yourself. You speak less carefully, you walk more carefully, you exist more carefully. People call this shyness, but sometimes it isn't shyness at all. Sometimes you are not afraid of people. You are trapped inside your own awareness of yourself, and that changes everything. Most shy people are described as quiet, but what nobody talks about is the amount of mental noise happening underneath that quietness. Because while other people are living the moment, your attention keeps folding back onto yourself. How do I look right now? Did that sound stupid? Am I being awkward? Where do I put my hands? It becomes impossible to act naturally when half your brain is busy monitoring yourself like a security camera. And the strange part is, you usually know you are overthinking, but knowing doesn't stop it. Because this pattern is not logical first, it is neurological first. Your brain learns self-monitoring long before it becomes conscious thought. Sometimes it starts in childhood. Maybe you grew up in an environment where mistakes felt emotionally expensive, where embarrassment lingered too long, where being too loud, too emotional, or too different attracted criticism. So your nervous system adapted. It learned that constant self-awareness could protect you, not physically, socially. And the brain takes social danger very seriously. Research in neuroscience shows that social rejection activates many of the same brain regions as physical pain. To your nervous system, exclusion does not feel symbolic. It feels threatening. So over time, your brain develops a habit. Watch yourself constantly before others can judge you first. At first, this feels useful. You become observant, careful, socially intelligent. You notice tone changes, facial expressions, tiny emotional shifts other people miss. But eventually, the system becomes overactive, like a smoke alarm that starts reacting to steam instead of fire. Now, even ordinary moments feel loaded. Ordering coffee suddenly feels performative. Walking into a room feels strangely visible. Sending a text feels risky for no reason. And slowly, your personality stops flowing naturally. It becomes managed. That is why hyper self-aware people often feel exhausted after social interaction. Not because socializing itself drained them, but because they spent the entire interaction splitting attention between the conversation and themselves. Psychologists sometimes call this excessive self-focused attention, but a simpler way to understand it is this. Your brain has too many tabs open. One tab is trying to experience life. The other 20 are trying to monitor how you are experiencing life. And eventually, the system slows down. This is why you can seem confident in your head, but awkward in reality, because natural conversation depends on external attention. You need attention flowing outward, toward the person, toward the moment, toward curiosity. But hyper-awareness pulls attention inward instead, like trying to dance while staring at your own feet. The more you monitor yourself, the less fluid you become. And then something dangerous happens. You begin confusing inhibition with identity. You start saying, "This is just who I am. I'm naturally awkward. I'm just shy." But often, you are seeing the effect of chronic self-monitoring, not your true personality. Because personality changes under observation. Even in psychology experiments, people behave differently when they know they are being watched. Now imagine what happens when the observer is permanently inside your own head. You never fully relax into spontaneous behavior, and this creates another hidden problem. Your brain starts treating social interaction like performance evaluation instead of connection. That changes your entire emotional experience. Conversations stop feeling exploratory. They become tests. You stop asking, "Do I enjoy this person?" and start asking, "Am I doing okay right now?" That small shift quietly destroys authenticity. Because real connection requires partial forgetfulness of the self, not total confidence, not perfection, just enough outward attention to stop editing yourself every second. But here is the important part. This pattern is not proof that something is wrong with you. It is an adaptation. Your brain learned vigilance because vigilance once felt necessary. In behavioral psychology, behaviors that reduce discomfort get reinforced quickly. If self-monitoring helped you avoid embarrassment in the past, your brain stores it as protection, even if the protection becomes excessive later. That is why forcing yourself to just stop caring rarely works, because the brain interprets that advice as unsafe. You cannot shame a nervous system into relaxation. Instead, you have to retrain attention gradually, not by becoming fearless, but by becoming less internally trapped. The first step is noticing when your attention collapses inward. Most people do not realize it is happening in real time. During conversations, practice asking one silent question. question. What am I paying attention to right now? If the answer is mostly yourself, gently redirect outward toward the other person's words, their energy, the environment. This works because attention functions like a spotlight in the brain. Whatever the spotlight repeatedly lands on becomes emotionally amplified. If the spotlight stays on yourself all day, your flaws start feeling enormous. The second step is reducing prediction behavior. Hyper-aware people constantly simulate future embarrassment before it happens. You rehearse sentences, facial expressions, responses, but prediction increases anxiety because the brain keeps interpreting ordinary uncertainty as danger. So instead of rehearsing perfect interactions, practice tolerating incomplete control. For example, send a text without rereading it 5 times. Speak before fully scripting the sentence. Leave tiny imperfections uncorrected. This teaches the nervous system that survival does not depend on constant optimization. The third step is using physical grounding because hyper self-awareness often pulls you entirely into mental space. The brain becomes disconnected from sensory reality. So during anxious moments, shift attention into physical sensation. Feel your feet pressing into the floor. Notice the temperature of the room. Listen carefully to background sounds. This works because sensory grounding reduces activity in repetitive, self-referential thinking networks associated with rumination. In simple terms, your brain cannot fully obsess over itself while deeply processing external sensory input at the same time. The fourth step is understanding something uncomfortable. People are thinking about you far less than you think. Not because you are unimportant, but because they are trapped in their own self-awareness too. Most people are managing their own internal narration, their own insecurities, their own awkward moments, their own imagined judgments. You are standing in a room full of people secretly monitoring themselves, and strangely, that realization can become freeing. But maybe the most important shift is this: stop treating confidence as the goal. Confidence is often unstable because it depends on how you think you are performing. Attention matters more than confidence. A person with imperfect confidence but outward attention often appears relaxed and natural. A person with high self-monitoring often appears tense even if they are technically socially skilled. The goal is not becoming impressive. The goal is becoming present enough to forget yourself for a moment, because life feels lighter when you are not constantly carrying your own reflection everywhere you go. Think of hyper self-awareness like holding a camera pointed at yourself all day. Eventually, you stop experiencing life directly. You only experience recordings of yourself experiencing life. The solution is not smashing the camera, it is slowly turning the lens outward again. And maybe that is what freedom actually looks like. Not becoming fearless, not becoming extroverted, just becoming quiet enough inside your own head to finally hear the world outside of it. Because the moment you stop obsessively watching yourself, you finally give yourself permission to simply exist.